This is Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
I'm the only lawyer ever to obtain a court ruling that a president of the United States committed a crime.
For truth. For competition.
As a young lawyer, I helped break up AT&T. That's why you have all your cell phones today.
For sovereignty. For the Republic.
I'm the guy who, at Judicial Watch, which I founded, uncovered the Chinagate scandal. Millions of dollars going to the Clinton campaign, corrupting our political system.
For the privacy of citizens.
And I'm the only guy to have enjoined the National Security Agency from mass surveillance on hundreds of millions of Americans.
Tearing it up.
I'm the son of meatpackers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
Bringing it back.
We're going to take this country apart and put it back together again in the way envisioned by our founding fathers.
It's not just talk.
We're not just regurgitating news stories. Larry Klayman, special prosecutor, is making the news.
And now, here's Larry.
Welcome to this week's edition of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. As I always say, a very important show. This is a super important show, and I have with me my friend, my colleague, a great Hollywood film producer and writer, Joel Gilbert, who wrote the book Trayvon, Hoax. He has a documentary that's on DVD. We're going to be talking about a case that I just brought a few days ago for George Zimmerman. But first, I want to get into what's happening in the news because, as you know, and as the lead-in says, we just don't report the news, we make the news. But I also analyze the news. I analyze what's being said on cable news and also in the print media. And you've been getting incorrect information. I predicted it correctly all along. Of course, we're headed into the impeachment of the President of the United States, the 45th President, Donald Trump. At the same time, Republicans have been demanding an investigation of the Steele dossier, Fusion GPS, all the other crimes that were committed by the Democrats and Hillary Clinton. I've been telling you, don't listen to what you're hearing on Fox News with Hannity, with Greg Jarrett, with others, that nothing was going to happen, that this is typical Washington, it's reality series, and this is why you need to support Freedom Watch, because we are your people's Justice Department. This is the difference between Freedom Watch and Judicial Watch when I ran it. We bring hard-hitting cases, and that's exactly what we're doing in the Zimmerman case that we're going to talk about for the rest of the show. But I want to set this out right up front, is that although the president's going to be impeached, and although House Republicans, have been putting on a good show over there, I might add, because that's basically what they do is show rather than actually doing anything of significance. They've been saying, well, we're going to, when we have the trial in the Senate with regard to the impeachment, because that's the way the Constitution works. The House impeaches, the Senate will try the president, and we're going to be calling witnesses. We're going to be really tough. We're going to bring Joe Biden in front of the Senate. We're going to bring Hunter Biden in front of the Senate. We're going to bring Adam Schiff, Shifty Schiff, in front of the Senate. Well, we just found out that, in fact, that's not what's going to happen. Senator Mitch McConnell, the majority leader, says, no, we're not going to do those things. Lindsey Graham, head of the Judiciary Committee, oh, no, we're just going to talk. We're not really going to do anything. We're not going to be controversial. We're going to put our heads in the sand. I guess what they plan to do is just simply vote the impeachment down and not convict the president without using the opportunity to break the back of the left, which is, of course, the Democrats these days, and end this thing now. Lindsey Graham has the ability, and so does McConnell right now, to not even go to an impeachment trial, or that matter, impeachment in the House. All he has to do is subpoena Joe Biden and Hunter Biden. The Democrats will run for the exits quicker than Snagglepuss in a Warner Brothers cartoon. And I got to tell you, this is symptomatic of what's going on. And just the other day, we had one of these phony impeachment proceedings with Gerald Nadler, one of the card-carrying members of the Jewish left up there. And I'm Jewish. I'm a Jewish Christian, so I don't mean this in an anti-Semitic way, but I've been very critical of the Jewish left because what they're trying to do is similar to what Marx and Trotsky tried to do back in Russia in 1917. They want a Bolshevik gulag-type country out there, and they're doing whatever they can to remove this president who's doing such a really great job. Well, they bring these so-called legal experts in front of the House Judiciary Committee. One of them is Jonathan Turley. He's the only one speaking allegedly on behalf of the President of the United States. And I like Jonathan Turley. I think he's a nice person. But like everybody else, Jonathan Turley is scared. he doesn't do what he always thinks is right. As long as he can get him on Fox or other cable networks, he'll go and he'll say what needs to be said depending what network you're on, left or right. So he testifies that there's no basis for impeachment under the Constitution. But when he gets threatened, when people start threatening him, and he gets nasty letters and phone calls and emails and texts, and they're sent to George Washington University, where he's a law professor, just Friday morning he says, well, I really didn't mean that. What I said was there's not sufficient evidence on the record to impeach President Trump at this time. He's backing off. He wants to keep his job as a George Washington professor. He thinks it may be in jeopardy because George Washington, like other schools, including my alma mater, Duke, which I talked about last week, they're leftists. They're highly leftist. In addition to that, we know this week from various leaks that Michael Horowitz, an appointee of President Obama, as I have predicted all along, is not going to implicate any higher-ups in the Fusion GPS or the Steele dossier scandal, the so-called FISA scandal, or for that matter, anything else. And then we also get leaks that John Durham, this messiah as he's been painted, along with Attorney General Bill Barr up there in Connecticut, the U.S. attorney, is not going to recommend any criminal prosecutions or hasn't even gathered evidence with regard to people like Comey and Rosenstein and others who not only committed crimes but subverted the Constitution. Now, we at Freedom Watch are going to try them. We're going to indict them under our citizens' grand juries. We're going to try them. We're going to fry them legally, peacefully, and legally. But this is what I've been telling you all along. And, of course, then Friday morning there's a story coming off of Fox News by Greg Jarrett and others that they're hopeful that, in fact, don't listen to these leaks, there will be justice. Well, you know what? Fox News, to my mind, is more despicable and more unethical than even CNN. At least CNN says what they believe. They don't play two sides of the street. They're lunatics, okay? They're lunatic leftists. They are disgusting. They're everything else. But Fox gives you false information, whether it's Hannity or Jarrett or Jeanine Pirro or some of the others over there, and they should not be sending out these false signals to you, the viewer, assuming you're viewing, and I hope, frankly, you don't view them anymore. Turn on the Golf Channel or the Tennis Channel. You'll learn more. At least there's winners and losers there. But this is what really gets under my skin is because this is the game. This is the reality series of Washington, D.C. You know, let's play the game. Let's boost our ratings. Let's get advertising dollars. Let's get ourselves on Fox News or CNN or MSNBC. Let's raise money for our political campaigns if you're a congressman or senator. But in the end, we're all going to go away and be one fat, happy, rich family, part of the same league, the National League and the American League, part of the NFL, which is richer than God, frankly, facetiously said, because I believe in God, not to disparage him or to use his name in vain. But this is what we're dealing with, and it's why you need a Freedom Watch. It's why you need a Larry Klayman. I've got to be self-serving here because I'm the only lawyer that will do this in this country. Judicial Watch today under Fitton, who's not a lawyer, you know, they get documents. That's great. But what do you do with the documents? Hang them, frame them, put them on the wall with pictures of yourself in tight shirts? Or do you bring hard-hitting cases? And so I have Joel Gilbert here with me right now. We're going to talk about that in the rest of the segments of this show because I represent George Zimmerman. And Joel Gilbert, who's a patriotic guy, fearless, wrote a book, The Trayvon Hoax, and a documentary on DVD. He'll tell you how he can get it. And that's newly discovered evidence which shows that an imposter witness was presented to try to convict George Zimmerman during his criminal prosecution a number of years ago. And part of the alleged conspiracy, as we set forth in the complaint, which you can find at Larry Klayman, you know, I spell my name with a K.com, was that there was a concerted effort to try to get George Zimmerman convicted. He could have done life imprisonment if he was convicted. Thank God he wasn't. He was falsely imprisoned as a result of a false witness that was put forward. There's a big story here. And I filed this case. And what happened after that is very, very telling. I'm getting threats. The left is going crazy. This story is all over the world, not just in the United States, but in Europe and Asia and South America. It's looked upon because the injustice that was perpetrated towards George Zimmerman, and we filed this not just for him, but for everybody, including African Americans who have been subjected to the hypocrisy and corruption in our legal system by being falsely prosecuted. Today it's George Zimmerman. Yesterday it was the Bundys. And many other people have been victimized here. And so we're going to set an example. We're not only going to heal race relations in this country, hopefully, and bring about justice, but we're going to set an example that dishonest prosecutors and people that try to manipulate the system, like the defendants in this case, will be held accountable in a court of law. And that's what we do at and this is a private case that I brought, but it's also what we do at Freedom Watch, because there has to be someone that puts his or her foot down and comes forward as patriots to prevent this tyranny in our country. You know, this is why we declared independence in my birthplace of Philadelphia on July 4th, 1776. It's why we formed a republic, because King George III had taken our legal system back to the court of St. James. We don't have a legal system today in this country that functions. I brought this case in a Florida state court because this is a state that allows cases to go forward. We brought it in Polk County, which has a demographic representative of the United States, and we are confident of getting jurors that will return a verdict, that will bring about justice for George Zimmerman and compensate him. He's been destroyed. He has severe PTSD. He can't get a job. People have tried to kill him because of this hoax, and it's something that Joel's going to discuss and get the ball teed up. And I'll be asking questions. I'm the lawyer on this case. He's someone that uncovered this evidence, Joel Gilbert, because we have to take risks today if we're going to save this country. We cannot be afraid. And you'll hear what happened after we file the case in that regard. So I'm going to be right back with Joel Gilbert, great Hollywood film writer and producer, and we're going to talk about the great Trayvon hoax. Until then, go to LarryKlayman.com and look at the complaint, digest that, and go to freedomwatchusa.org, not today, and contribute to our cause, because we need to get bigger. We are your people's Justice Department. I'll be right back.
Dangerous.
Don't care. Use the court and the law.
Lethal.
This is bad.
Special prosecutor.
Very bad.
Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with Joel Gilbert. He's the person that uncovered this newly discovered evidence concerning the fraud that was perpetrated in the criminal prosecution of George Zimmerman. I introduce you to Joel Gilbert, that great Hollywood film writer and producer who is heroic and fearless, and who, along with me, is taking a lot of heat right now. Joel?
Hi, Larry. Thanks for the introduction. Well, I'm here in Fort Lauderdale, of course, and had a whole plan to show the Trayvon hoax film after a press conference by yourself about your case, and actually booked it in a couple weeks in advance, paid in advance for the Coral Gables Art Cinema, and signed a contract. Sure enough, I was actually quite shocked, because a couple months ago I screened this movie at the National Press Club. Everybody loved it, had a great turnout, no problems at all. But on the way to the theater, they asked me to come test the Blu-ray drive just to make sure it works good. And they called and said, the woman who manages the place said, I've got the mayor here, I got the city council, and I've got the legal counsel for the city. They're here in my lobby, and I've got to go meet with them. It looks like we're going to cancel your event. I said, you can't do that. I got a signed contract, got thousands of dollars spent to come here. We've got media on the way. You can't do that. You can't censor this. You go, why would you do this? She said, well, there's some concerns about the film. And she calls me back 15 minutes later, just said, we're canceling it. And obviously that's caused a new firestorm of media coverage of the censorship of a film. I asked her, I said, if it was a Michael Moore film, would you have canceled it? She wouldn't answer me. So we're going to look at what legal actions we need to take, because somehow she says the city was involved in this and they've caused tremendous harm. But in turn, it's caused the media. In fact, we had about 50 news crews coming, including CNN, Fox, you name it. But it's just blown up and gone worldwide. People are now covering both my film and, of course, your lawsuit of this case.
Well, let me tell you here, the mayor is likely involved because Joel was told the mayor had intervened of Coral Gables. I've called his office. I've asked for an explanation. He's going to wind up getting sued. This is an abridgment of First Amendment rights. It cannot be permitted. All that was going to be said was a showing of Joel's film and an introduction, as well as a press conference explaining the lawsuit. And certainly, if people can go out there and destroy George Zimmerman verbally, and we know that's happened, and Joel's going to get into the story here and start from day one, we're entitled to have a press conference. But I might add, most of the coverage initially was actually quite favorable. Of course, then they seek to try to destroy the messenger, which is, of course, yours truly and Joel. But ABC did just an outrageous piece. Interestingly enough, NBC, who had done bad stuff in the past with regard to Mr. Zimmerman and others, did a fair piece.
Today's show.
And you can take a look at that piece, because I wrote a column that's going to be in WorldNet Daily tonight, worldnetdaily.com, and also on the LarryKlayman.com website and FreedomWatch USA.org, is that ABC perpetrated another fraud, which Larry Klayman has made a career of suing black politicians. Well, I got to tell you something. I'd say it's about 99% to 1% of white politicians that I've sued. And I can't think of a politician, because Eric Holder doesn't count. He, in theory, is not a politician. Neither is Loretta Lynch. I think the only black politician I ever sued was Barack Obama. Okay? So this is what they do. And they try to whip up this racial division and hatred. They try to get you harmed. They try to get you threatened. I'm getting all these kinds of threats, not just perpetrated by ABC. But this is what goes on. And you have to be fearless. You cannot back down. You have to move forward. Our founding fathers risked their lives to form a great nation. We can do no less today, because our nation is slipping away. And that's why I take my hat off to Joel and to George Zimmerman, who's coming forward. People have already tried to kill George Zimmerman in the past. That's a matter of record. He's destroyed. That's why we asked for over $100 million of damages. And on top of the fraud committed on the court and the criminal prosecution by the prosecutors of Florida and by certain members of the Trayvon Martin family, you have the family attorney, Benjamin Crump, who just wrote a book claiming that whites are trying to commit genocide against colored people, and who, of course, is the number one villain, George Zimmerman. So he was defamed, and he's part of that case. And if you can believe this, I rail against Fox News, but who owns Fox News? Rupert Murdoch and the Murdoch sons. Well, who published this book? HarperCollins. Who owns HarperCollins? The Murdochs. And that tells you something about the two-faced, hypocritical, unethical approach of Fox News. So this is something that you need to keep in mind. This is why we tell the truth on this show. I'll be right back.
And now, 4 words that make corrupt politicians make wee-wee in their little pants.
Transparency and the rule of law will be the touchstones of this presidency.
But we have to pass the bill so that you can find out what is in it.
Special Prosecutor Larry Klayman.
Be the one who makes our country great again. Go to freedomwatchusa.org and donate.
I'm back with Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. Joel, tell us how you uncovered this Trayvon hoax.
Thanks, Larry. Well, I actually started looking into the Trayvon Martin case because of Andrew Gillum, the Florida Tallahassee mayor, who was a very radical socialist, came out of nowhere and almost beat Ron DeSantis for the Florida governorship. I had noticed that during the debates, he was constantly race baiting. He told Ron DeSantis, I don't think you're a racist, but the racists think you're a racist. Then he talked about Trayvon Martin quite a bit. So I just said, I've got to look into the basis of Gillum's unexpected rise, his whole race-based narrative. And I remembered how strong the Trayvon Martin case, the effect of it, the Zimmerman case had on the country. It really was ground zero for all the racial division in the country. We had a black president. We're all very proud of that, even if you didn't agree with his politics. And you'd think race relations would have gotten even better. Instead, it got worse after this case. It led directly to Black Lives Matter, to the Ferguson effect, that 33% rise in homicides in the black communities, on and on. It's just been a crime disaster for black neighborhoods. So I thought, how do I start to look at that case? And I decided I'd get to know Trayvon Martin. That would be a starting point. So I went to the state of Florida, got all the open public records. There's a public records, open record state. And I got the 750-page cell phone records of Trayvon. And I got to know him in the last 8 months of his life, probably more than his friends and family even knew him, just from reading his 3,000 text messages, hundreds of emails, looking at his contacts, 3,000 photos. And in getting to know him as really just an average kid. He was not a thug. He was not a rocket scientist that they made him out to be either. But he really started a downhill spiral and got into very serious, dangerous activities, fighting, heavy marijuana use, gun dealing. And the other thing I noticed was he was talking to this girl named Diamond, the girlfriend. People remember Rachel Gentel, the kind of plus-sized Haitian-American girl who came to court claiming that she was Trayvon's girlfriend and claiming she was on the phone with Trayvon up to the minute that he was shot. And I noticed from reading these text messages between the two that the girl Diamond did not seem like the same personality as Rachel Gentel. And then I found photos that she's texting back and forth with Trayvon, and it's not Rachel Gentel. Rachel Gentel looks very much different from Diamond. So the way this journey went, it's kind of an investigative journey. I take everybody along in the film and the book with me, how I started by trying to identify the real girlfriend and then find out why and how she was substituted for what turned out to be an imposter fake witness. And I'll remind your listeners, the way this went down is on February 26, 2012 was when Martin was shot in this altercation. 2.5 weeks later, the Sanford police announced the results. They had looked at the 911 calls, the physical evidence, an eyewitness, Jonathan Good, that came out and saw Zimmerman screaming for help, having his head beat in the ground. And they announced this was self-defense. It was not even a stand your ground case. They said self-defense, it's over. That was March 12, 2012. Immediately, the family attorney, Ben Crump, he had the NAACP invite the Department of Justice down to, quote, investigate. We found out later they actually helped to organize protests. He brought Al Sharpton down. He said, we called up to New York City to get someone with a track record. That's what Ben Crump said. Of course, Al Sharpton was known for the Tawana-Brawley race hoax. And then a week later, Crump holds a press conference. He holds up a digital recorder. He says, we just found Trayvon's girlfriend, Diamond Eugene. She's only 16 years old. He plays a couple excerpts and says, arrest Zimmerman now. And the state of Florida is pressured into appointing a special counsel. They come down 2 weeks later to interview 16-year-old Diamond Eugene. And what I've proven through the evidence, through the handwriting analysis, through the photographic analysis, everything, even the Twitter account of Diamond Eugene, it all shows, including the unredacted court documents, that the police went with Trayvon's mother, Sabrina Fulton, to pick up Diamond Eugene at her house. We got her address. That's her house. They're sent away to another house, and that's when Rachel Gentel appeared. She said, I'm Diamond Eugene. I'm 18. I guess I lied about my name, I lied about my age. So based on that interview that they do with Rachel Gentel, they use her statements that are obviously false to arrest Zimmerman in this affidavit of probable cause. And it's proven right there at that time, actually, believe it or not, Diamond Eugene is tweeting the entire month. She's tweeting 50 times a day. It's an average of every 20 minutes while she's awake. And she actually tweets when Rachel Gentel appears at the exact same time on April 2nd, 6:30. She says, Trayvon Martin's mom just called me. She thought I was Trayvon's girlfriend. And so the evidence is overwhelming, including handwriting analysis that shows the letter signed as Diamond Eugene that Rachel claims she signed, on and on. So I've proven the witness fraud, and then I show kind of who knew about it, but Trayvon's mother definitely knew about it. And I talk really a great deal in the film and the book about how this affected the country and how a political agenda took over this case, because the black vote was not in the tank for Obama in 2012. So they were using the Department of Justice to try to gin up racial animus in this case. And remember the background, Obama was also at the same time using the IRS to break up the opposition Tea Party movement. So that was the playbook. They use the tools of state once they take power because their policies don't work. 50, 60, 80% unemployment in urban black communities. Taxes were going up. Businesses were leaving. Everything had gotten worse. So that's how Marxist, socialist, leftists work. Their policies are a failure, so they use the tools of state to keep themselves in power. So this was one of the tools of state they used to force this political agenda to divide the country, to inflame black voters, that there's this racism all over the place. So the Trayvon hoax is two things. It's the substitution of a legitimate phone witness who was on the phone with Trayvon Martin and heard much of this incident, named Brittany Diamond Eugene, with a fake witness, an imposter, Rachel Gentile. The Trayvon hoax is also the name I give to coin the hoax the media plays on black Americans every day, that America is racist and you better vote for Democrats to protect yourselves. This nonsense has gone on for the last 5 or 6 years. The media runs with it. People remember a few weeks ago that story about a elementary school girl in Virginia said, some white kids cut off my dreadlocks. The next day, the media said, Mike Pence's wife works at this school. They were so excited. The third day, the mother of the girl said it was a hoax. She lied. So this nonsense, Jussie Smollett, hands up, don't shoot. It's been very detrimental for the country. And I'm hoping this film will show people that you don't need to believe in this nonsensical racial animus.
Well, and that's very important, Joel, because what we're trying to do here is not just bring about justice for George Zimmerman, but justice for all people. You know, the Bundys, go to ClyvenBundyDefenseFund.org. They were wrongfully prosecuted for political purposes. That was whipped up. We have others out there. Sheriff Joe Arpaio, we're in front of the Ninth Circuit right now with regard to the hit that was done on him, based upon what they allege his deputies did in going to day worker sites and allegedly profiling illegal immigrants. You know, and the irony here is that of all the threats and profanities and everything else that people are calling on my cell phone and elsewhere today, I'd say about 95% are coming from the white Jewish left, not from African Americans, because they understand the injustice. They understand how the system's played. They understand how they've been victimized. And that's the tragedy here. You just have these black radicals out there trying to whip things up. There's these extortionists, con men like Al Sharpton that were brought in by Benjamin Crump, the family lawyer of the Martins, by people like Jesse Jackson, like the president of the United States himself, Barack Obama, who equated himself with Trayvon being his son without him knowing any facts. And this is a president. This is why, you know, I think he's one of the worst presidents in American history, because we had an opportunity with Barack Obama to go beyond what we were achieving at the time, to bring the races together, to have harmony. And he ignited a race war, which continues today. And this case is so important because it's a way that we can push back legally and peacefully to try to arrest this race war. And race wars between religious sects, and race wars between people of different sexual persuasions, race wars between men and women. I wouldn't call them race wars. They're wars between men and women, which people like Hillary Clinton have tried to whip up, and radical feminists, and wars between atheists and people of faith. Is that if we don't put our foot down, if we don't bring about justice, if we are not fearless, and we don't back off, like Jonathan Turley did this morning with regard to his testimony before the House Judiciary Committee, then we're going to lose this country, and we're going to be in a revolutionary state. It's going to get violent. I don't want to see that. But I'll tell you something, it's going to happen unless citizens of good faith are able to come forward and support what we do. So go to LarryKlayman.com, see that complaint, and also support the work we're doing at Freedom Watch at freedomwatchusa.org.
I can tell you my best emails are from black teenagers. They get this case. They get it. One of the most touching one was a girl who said she had a black son and she was afraid for him to grow up in America. She grew up with this stuff that there's armed white men in the streets, or there's cops that want to hurt you because of your skin color. And she said, thank you so much. I'm not afraid anymore. We got played. That's what she wrote me. We got played. So no one has suffered more from this Trayvon hoax nonsense than the black youth of America. And that's why I'm so proud of the film and the people that watch it. It just makes your head spin when you see it. My head is still spinning. You will not believe what happened, and you get to come along on the investigative journey as I discover everything, you can see the film and the book at the TrayvonHoax.com.
It's interesting that we brought the case in Florida and there's been so much press generated. I haven't gotten this much press, and that was not my intention. I just want people to know what we're doing because it's important to educate the American people and why we're doing it and why we're sticking our neck out. But the last time I ever saw a press explosion like this was when I sued Dick Cheney, by the way, a white politician, then vice president, for cooking the books at Halliburton, for having investors based on fraudulent accounting principles buy stocks in Halliburton. That occurred in Miami many, many years ago when I was running Judicial Watch. But it's important to get the word out. And I ask you to share this radio show. And, I'm not hawking for Joel. He can do that for himself. But I'll tell you something. You got to read this book, and you've got to see the film because he did such a thorough job. I mean, he's a fantastic investigative reporter as well as a film producer. And people don't appreciate that. And Joel's taken heat in the past because he gets into controversial issues, and he's not afraid. And that's what we need in the media. We don't need people, like Sean Hannity to tell people that things that aren't true. We need people who actually are there and will stand up for the people who are not popular. Because, I don't equate myself with John Adams. I'm not at his level, obviously. But he defended the British troops on Boston Common who were provoked into killing some colonialists. He won. He got an acquittal. He lost his law practice. And he went on and became one of our greatest founding fathers. I think he and Jefferson and Franklin are our three greatest founding fathers. And what we're trying to do is uphold the principles of the Constitution. So we're going to be back with the third segment. It's the verdict segment of Special Prosecutor with Larry Klayman. And we're going to give a roundup as to what needs to be done to try to save this country, because we are in dire straits right now, and we have to take action, and we have to try to do it peacefully and legally. And watch what we do, given the fact that the Inspector General, an Obama appointee, that John Durham, that the Justice Department, Bill Barr, have taken a dive and all the corruption the Democrats perpetrated against Donald Trump and others, is that we, the people, need to rise up ourselves. We cannot look for others to do things. So put the popcorn and beer down, or the Kool-Aid, get up off your couch, and go to freedomwatchusa.org. Join our Justice League. We are your people's Justice Department, and you are the superheroes. And we need your strong financial support because we need to get bigger. We need to truly be the mouse that roared. Maybe we can even become the mouse. And when you go to freedomwatchusa.org and support the Clive and Bundy Defense Fund.org or the Corsi Legal Defense Fund.com, or just go to my website at larryklayman.com and educate yourself as to what's going on, it's important that you take it to heart. It's important that you understand that what you hear in cable news is to boost ratings and for advertising dollars. Read the internet, read newspapers, come to your own conclusion, but then become an activist yourself, peacefully and legally. Well, I'm going to be right back with the verdict section with Special Prosecutor of Larry Klayman.
Before he was a trial lawyer, he sliced him and diced him.
People used to ask me, Larry, what caused you to start Judicial Watch and now Freedom Watch, given the powerful forces in this country that put you at risk?
In a meat packing plant.
I'm the son of meat packers in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. I know how to slice and dice.
A very special prosecutor, Larry Klayman.
If you'd like to support Freedom Watch and this radio show, go to freedomwatchusa.org.
I'm back with Joel Gilbert. And, what is the moral to the story? What is it that we need to do? I just gave you a pep talk in the last segment at the end. But if we don't rise up, if we don't do what our founding fathers did in the days leading up to the revolution, if we don't stick our neck out and we don't take risks, then we're not going to have a country anymore. And what we need is not more documents. Look, here's a good example. Joel Gilbert does this documentary and he writes his book. And it's well documented. He went into telephone records, handwriting samples, every which way from Sunday. He's proved his case. But what did Larry Klayman do about it? Well, I took his research and I filed a hard-hitting lawsuit that can change the whole nature of what's going on in this country today, whether it's the race war or any other aspect of the vigilantes out there trying to destroy good people in this country. And that's the difference between me and Judicial Watch. A little comparative advertising. You have to take the evidence and use it. It's not enough to take the evidence and go on Fox News and pound your chest and say how great I am. We, the American people, we don't have time to pound our chest. We have time to do things. You know, like Paul Revere and others, we have to give the clarion call to the populace to rise up peacefully and legally, and that's the verdict. So I want Joel to give his verdict on what he's doing, and I hope that he continues on to do the fine investigative work that he does, because we're not finished with the Trayvon Martin hoax, and we're not finished with representing George Zimmerman. There are a lot of other people out there that have been wrong, just like George Zimmerman. And I hope that he will continue to do his good work. Joel, wrap this baby up, because people need to understand that they need to rise up themselves.
Okay, so first of all, you got to go to the TrayvonHoax.com, watch the trailer. You can live stream the movie right there, or jump over to Amazon for the book and DVD. And once you see this, it just makes people's blood boil, because you just see that America got played. We got played by an epic race hoax that divided us for no reason. I believe that Americans are all brothers, black and white, Hispanic. We're all brothers in this nation of liberty under the Constitution. And we don't want to have bad actors, fake witnesses, liars, corrupt judicial officials taking away our brotherhood and what makes us able to make progress as a nation. And when you watch the Trayvon hoax, you'll see the bad actors, and you'll understand how far we've gotten away from this in the last 6 or 7 years because of this race hoax, because of this epic deception that was then used by the media and politicians to pull us apart, when really our true aspirations have always been to come together as one nation. I grew up in Tennessee in the 80s. We had black and white kids. Nobody cared about your color. It was all about the strength of character. Nobody heard the N-word. I never heard it. And the media and Democrats and the left want us to believe that 40 years later, America became all of a sudden racist. So if you're black, you better seek shelter on the left. This is the media narrative. It's in the media every day. And I'm hoping that when people see this Trayvon hoax movie, they'll understand that the last 6 years of racial division, Colin Kaepernick kneeling and protesting America at NFL games, total nonsense. He got played, literally, no pun intended. I think Colin Kaepernick can go back and play for the 49ers. Black Lives Matter can hang it up because we need to come together, and it was a hoax. We got played.
Well, you know what? I made this is one small point I disagree with you, Joe. I don't think he should be playing for anybody right now. I mean, this guy really harmed race relations in this country, and frankly, that's a private enterprise at the NFL. But just like we were excluded from the Carl Gable cinema. But that being said, okay, is that we're here in a positive way. We represent everybody. I am, in effect, a civil rights lawyer. Joel is doing his duty and responsibility to heal race relations. I thank him to a great extent. And we'll be back next week. This is perhaps our most important show to date. So listen carefully, share it with your colleagues. Go to freedomwatchusa.org, ClydeandBundyDefenseFund.org, CorseyDefenseFund.org, and contribute to these causes. And let me add that what we need to do also is to forget about Congress, forget about the news media, forget about the three branches of government, our so-called government, the executive being corrupted by the deep state. And we need to rise up ourselves, as I've said. And I know I'm sounding like a broken record, but if there's any time that you should take heed, it's now. And the Zimmerman case and what Joel Gilbert uncovered is, in fact, the clarion call to what needs to be done right now. So God bless you. God bless your family. God bless America during this holiday season. And God save America.